From 1968 to 1974, one man terrorized America. He called himself the Zodiac. The police chased him, the FBI hunted him, but he always stayed one step ahead. And the most haunting part? His case remains unsolved, even after half a century. It all began on a cold December night, 1968, in Benicia, California. Two teenagers sat quietly in their car when an unknown man approached and opened fire. It was the first known attack by the man who would soon be called the Zodiac Killer, but that was only the beginning. Over the next few months, Zodiac struck again, couples, random victims, all chosen without any clear pattern. Each crime was colder, smarter, and deadlier than the last. And every time he left behind something even darker, a letter. Zodiac didn't just kill, he played mind games. He wrote directly to newspapers, taunting police and the public. In one chilling letter he said, "This is the Zodiac speaking. I like killing people because it's so much fun." Each letter contained mysterious symbols and encrypted codes, puzzles that mocked the world. No one knew if they were random or if they hid his real identity. But one thing was clear, the Zodiac wanted to be known. Panic spread across California. People stopped going out at night. Every dark car on the road looked suspicious. Police investigated hundreds of suspects. The FBI brought in code breakers, linguists, and psychologists. But still, no face, no fingerprints, no name. All that remained were his cryptic letters. His strange symbol, a circle with a cross through it, and the fear that he could strike again at any moment. Decades passed. The world changed. Technology evolved, but the Zodiac's identity remained a ghost in history. His story became legend. Books, films, theories, each one chasing the same question: who was the Zodiac Killer? And now, in a time when science can trace a killer from a single strand of hair or a touch on a doorknob, a chilling thought returns. Could modern DNA finally unmask the Zodiac Killer? A case that should have ended in the 1970s is being reborn in the 2020s through DNA. Can this technology finally reveal the face behind the mask? Or will the Zodiac outsmart time itself? For over 50 years, the Zodiac Killer remained a shadow. But what if today's science could finally bring him into the light? We live in an era where one cell, one drop, one breath can expose a murderer. Back in the 1970s, DNA testing didn't even exist. Police relied on fingerprints, handwriting, and witness memory, all fragile, all flawed. But now, things are different. In the last decade, forensic science has evolved beyond imagination. Today, even the smallest trace, a strand of hair, a drop of saliva, or skin cells left on a stamp, can reveal a person's entire genetic blueprint. And that changes everything. In 2018, a chilling precedent was set. A 40-year-old unsolved case, the Golden State Killer, was solved through genetic genealogy. Investigators uploaded the killer's DNA to an online ancestry database and matched it, not to the killer directly, but to his distant relatives. Piece by piece, they built his family tree backward, until one name stood out: Joseph James Dengelo, a former police officer. Caught after decades because of a single DNA trace, that moment changed crime-solving forever. And for the first time, the world realized the Zodiac could be next. Back in the 1970s, Zodiac sent dozens of letters to the media and police. Many of those letters were sealed with his saliva, his DNA, for decades. That evidence sat in cold storage, useless, contaminated, or too small to test. But with today's advanced extraction methods, even a microscopic trace can be revived. In recent years, experts have re-examined those envelopes and stamps. And some believe a partial DNA profile already exists. The only question is, does it belong to him? Private investigators and retired detectives have teamed up with new forensic labs, using cutting-edge tools like next-generation sequencing, NGS, and forensic genealogy databases. They've started comparing Zodiac's partial DNA with millions of profiles worldwide. Each test brings a sliver of hope and a new layer of suspense, because if one familial match is found, it could lead to the bloodline of the most mysterious killer in American history. For the first time in decades, the phrase Zodiac DNA isn't just speculation, it's science. Analysts believe we may be inches away from identifying someone, or ruling out suspects long believed guilty. Imagine a man who once mocked the police, saying, "I am uncatchable," finally unmasked by a strand of his own DNA. Technology doesn't forget, and the past, no matter how buried, always leaves a trace. Closing line Part 2 end. The Zodiac Killer built his legacy on mystery. But modern science might end it with certainty. The question is, will the truth bring justice, or open a darker door we were never meant to find? For over 50 years, the Zodiac Killer wasn't just a murderer, he became a myth. But what happens when cold science begins to melt that myth away? When a monster built from fear and mystery suddenly becomes human? The Zodiac Killer wasn't like any other criminal. He didn't just take lives, he took control of fear itself. His symbols, his coded letters, his arrogance, they all fed a legend that outlived the man himself. People saw him as unstoppable, untouchable, even supernatural. He was a ghost with intelligence sharper than the law. And over time, the Zodiac stopped being a case. He became a story. A shadow that grew stronger every time it wasn't caught. But now, the age of myths is being replaced by the age of data. DNA doesn't believe in mystery. It doesn't care about legends or fear. It only cares about truth. When a DNA test enters the story, the tone changes. The whispers turn into evidence. The theories collapse into facts. And suddenly, the man behind the monster isn't a genius or a ghost. He's just human. For some people, that's comforting. For others, it's heartbreaking. Because mystery has power. And the Zodiac's power came from the unknown. The moment science reveals his name, the story ends. No more puzzles. No more fear. Just an old man, long gone, whose crimes once echoed through time. And maybe that's why. Deep down, some people don't want the Zodiac to be found. Think about it. When the Golden State Killer was unmasked, the world gasped, but only for a moment. After the name was revealed, the terror faded. The myth died. The Zodiac could be next. And if that happens, we might not feel victory, we might feel loss. Because for decades, the Zodiac wasn't just a killer, he was a symbol of the unknown. A mirror showing us how little control we really have over evil. If science finally unmasks him, will justice feel satisfying? Or will it feel like opening a door to something we were never ready to face? Because sometimes, the truth isn't what gives peace. It's what takes mystery away. The Zodiac Killer once said, "I'm waiting for a good movie about me, but maybe the final story won't be written by him, it'll be written by DNA. And that story might end everything we thought we knew." For decades, the Zodiac Killer vanished into the shadows of history. But now, those shadows are being scanned, decoded, and traced because modern investigators believe his DNA might still be out there, and this time, science is the hunter. The year is now not 1969. No more fingerprints on paper bags or blurry sketches. Today, the Zodiac's trail runs through databases, through hidden cells of genetic code preserved for decades. Each old letter, each envelope, each stamp possibly holding microscopic whispers of identity. Forensic experts call it touch DNA, the kind that survives decades, even on paper. The letters that once terrified California might now betray the man who wrote them. Investigators have teamed up with advanced genealogy experts, the same kind who caught the Golden State Killer using a public DNA database. They start cross-matching old samples from the Zodiac envelopes with millions of online ancestry records. Each match, even a distant cousin, could shrink the circle. The mission? To build a genetic family tree that points directly to the Zodiac's bloodline. This isn't about fingerprints anymore, it's about family. In a silent lab somewhere in California, a technician extracts what could be the tiniest DNA strand ever linked to the case. Under the microscope, it's not just a chemical, it's a ghost. A whisper from 1969 that somehow survived time. They replicate it, test it, and feed it into new AI-driven forensic systems. Hours later, the screen flashes a message. Partial match detected. It's not a name. Not yet, but it's someone real. Now begins the chase through archives, family trees, and old police files. Private investigators, online sleuths, and retired detectives all join the digital manhunt. They pore over every possible link, an uncle's address, a cousin's name, an unsolved disappearance. Some claim they're closer than ever. Others warn that the sample might belong to a mailman, or even a journalist who handled the letters. But the possibility that it's him keeps everyone awake. What if the DNA leads to someone who's still alive? Someone who's lived a normal life, a neighbor, a father, a grandfather, carrying the blood of a legend of terror. Law enforcement officials tread carefully, because one wrong accusation could destroy an innocent life. And yet, every investigator knows the truth. Time is running out. If the Zodiac really existed, his silence may end soon. Late one night, inside a dimly lit office, an FBI agent receives an encrypted email. The subject line reads, "We may have him." The message contains one DNA sequence and a single name. But before confirming, they need one last test. A cross-check that could either end the greatest mystery in American crime history or reopen it forever. The hunt has never been this close, and yet it has never felt this dangerous, because catching the Zodiac might change what we thought justice really means. Decades of terror, thousands of clues, and now one DNA sequence that could change everything. After 55 years of silence, the Zodiac Killer's identity may finally be within reach. But the truth is far darker than anyone expected. Inside a secure federal lab, 3 scientists stare at a glowing monitor. A soft beep echoes through the room. Match confirmed. The DNA sample from the 1969 Zodiac letter has found its closest relative, a man in his 70s living quietly in rural California, a retired mechanic. No criminal record, no connection to law enforcement, just ordinary. Agents are stunned. Could this peaceful old man really be the most infamous killer in American history? 2 FBI agents knock on the door of a small house surrounded by oak trees. An old man answers, calm, polite, slightly trembling. His eyes cold but curious. They ask for a voluntary DNA swab for confirmation. He agrees with a faint smile. No fear, no hesitation, almost as if he's been waiting. Days later, the lab confirms it. The samples match, a 99.8% genetic probability. They found him, or so they think. As they dig deeper, investigators discover something chilling. This man had an identical twin brother, who disappeared in 1971. Records show the twin's name wiped from most databases. His identity lost after a fire destroyed hospital archives decades ago. One twin lived an ordinary life. The other might have lived in the dark. Agents return to question the old man again. He listens quietly to every word, then says just one sentence, "I told him to stop." They press further, "Who did you tell to stop?" The old man stares out the window. "You already know," he whispers. Moments later, he requests a Lauer and never speaks of it again. The next morning, he's gone, heart attack in his sleep. Natural causes, the report says, but was it really natural? Or planned, the final move of a killer who always stayed one step ahead? The case file closes quietly. The public never learns his name. Only a short statement. Recent forensic testing has provided new insights into the Zodiac case, but inside the bureau, rumors spread that a full confession letter was found sealed inside his home. A letter written in the same cryptic handwriting, ending with the words, "I am not the only one." 55 years later, the Zodiac Killer remains both real and mythical. Perhaps he was caught. Perhaps he was never alone. But one truth endures. The same letters that once terrified millions still whisper from the past. And somewhere, buried deep in DNA, the Zodiac signature still lives on. Maybe the real horror isn't that he was never found. Maybe it's that he was never truly gone. Because evil doesn't always vanish. Sometimes it just evolves.